Hi guys, so my name's Ian and I am the head coach at Tri Club, and I'm here today with Colin McCourt. Colin has got a fairly decent background from my understanding in track running. He's also had a cheeky bet with some mates, and he's agreed to talk with me today on the subject of sport and mental health and the current times that we're in. So welcome, Colin.
Hi mate, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Just planning on what I'm going to do this afternoon. Do I run? Am I going to ride? Like, what am I going to do this afternoon? But I'll probably have to knock it all on the head and just go for a walk with the family, because you're only allowed that one today.
Yeah, we do have to be selective with what we do, and yeah, it's definitely difficult. Well done for spending time with the family.
Yeah. I'd rather not, but yeah, it's got to be done.
How are you guys finding things?
We struggled in the first week or so, just because my son's got autism, so it's just he was just trying to get used to not going to nursery. I nearly said university. Going to nursery, and he was just struggling with his routine being broken, so it was just a bit tough. But he's settled down now, and then it's just trying to find them stuff to do and make sure that everything's as normal as it can be. And I guess I think after a week or two, children start to think this is just normal. They do just have their parents with them all the time. And so I'm lucky enough to be off for the next month, but I'll have to go back to work in 2 weeks. I was working and supposed to be in, but because of other circumstances, I'm just off for a month. But then looks like I'll be going back in 2 weeks' time. So
yeah,
yay!
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to this season, aren't there? Whilst it's utterly devastating in some ways, it does give people the opportunity to connect back with their family, to spend time with them, and like you say, to try and establish some good routines there as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I just wanted you to tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your journey, sort of through to now, maybe from your running days. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course. So I started running when I was 17, I think. So I was quite late to running. I used to play football, obviously like most young boys who end up running, they did some sort of other sport before. And I was pretty dedicated to football, and then that just wasn't really working out, and I just got asked to do some athletics, so I did, and I wasn't very good when I first started. And then I think that's a lie. I think I started running when I was 15, actually, because it took me 2 years to actually realize what you have to do to run. So that's running more than twice a week, and just talking to people at the track and doing one rep or something isn't going to make you any better. So then I started training properly 5 or 6 times a week, and as soon as I started doing that, I started winning races. So it sounds crazy, but yeah, as soon as I started training like that, I won English schools at 16. I'd gone from running 4:45 for 1500 meters to running 3:54 at 16, and then at 17 I ran 3:44. I didn't get much better from there, but just training a structure and going out every day for a run and doing sessions and stuff got me quite good quite young. Well, quite young. I was late to running, but I got good quite quickly. But that was mainly due to the fact that I used to play football, I think, all the time. So I'd play my own age at 13, and I'd play up an age in the afternoon. So I'd play under 15s football on a Sunday afternoon, and my own age in the mornings. So I was a relatively fit guy. I cycled everywhere to and from work and stuff, and school and all these different things. I had a paper round for about an hour. But yeah, so when it came to running, it was just the fact that I wasn't doing the right stuff when I was younger. I wasn't up to the point before I got good. It was just a social aspect and stuff, and it wasn't really anything that I realized you had to do more of. Because when you play football when you're younger, you do just turn up for one training session and you play a match on a Sunday. So that's pretty much what you think you're supposed to do. And then with athletics, it's actually completely different. If you don't do it pretty much every day, you don't get very good.
Yeah.
So and then from there, I moved. When I got to 17, I left home and went to live in London, and I worked full-time in Argos, which was good, for pretty much my entire first 3 years as a professional athlete. I worked full time and trained on top of it. So I stayed at like St Mary's, and everybody else was at uni there, but obviously I'd left school with like no grades, so I couldn't go to uni but needed to stay there, so I had to pay my rent to stay there and train. So until I got on funding properly, which I was on funding when I was 17, but not funding like it is now, or like it was 3 years after I started, where they then pay you a salary kind of thing to like pay your rent for where you're staying. And mine, it wasn't expensive because it was uni accommodation. I got a discount. It was something like, let's say £500 a month or something, or just over that. And so I was working to pay that. And then obviously the lottery came in when I was like 21, after I got a few GB vests and stuff. And I was about 20. And then they paid it for me. So it meant I didn't have to work anymore, which was a bad idea because I was running better when I worked, and I sort of jibbed the work off to become a full-time athlete. And being a full-time athlete for me, with like mild ADHD problems and stuff, I can't stop. So I need stuff to keep me going constantly. And if I don't have a stimulus all day, I will just do nothing and play computer, or just do things that aren't really like valuable or anything. So it kind of ruined my running. So when I ran 3:37 at like 21. And then from 21 to like 25, I did nothing, absolutely nothing. Didn't run well really at all. And then like 26, 27, 28, I finally got back to being good again, but I never quite reached my peak of running. I never ran any of the times that I should have ran, just mainly due to farting about, like drinking too much and just being silly, really, like just not really concentrating on what was right. And then obviously when you get older, and like now I look back at like 35, it's old, and I think
don't say you're old.
and I think I wish I just had I've never gone through a lot of different things in the last few years, but my mentality with training and stuff is a lot different now than it was when I was younger. And I know when you're younger, people tell you all the time, you're going to waste this, and this is not going to, like, if you don't get your head down and do this isn't going to happen. But you don't kind of believe that because you think you're invincible. So you just carry on doing your own thing, and you expect one day that you're going to win the Olympics, or you're going to run like 2:30 for 500 meters. And when that eventually doesn't happen, you sort of go a bit, you sort of lose it a bit, and you sort of give in, and then you sort of go down past it. You're not really sure how you got to. So like, I just wish that I had the training mentality I have now at this age that I had then, because my body can't do the things I want it to do now because it's older and a bit worn down. Where if I had this mentality where my body could do whatever it wanted, I don't know what I would have been capable of, because I never ran a 100-mile week ever. I never went over 50 to 60 miles for my entire athletics career. But when I got to the age of 35, I ran 7 80-mile weeks and 1 100-mile week. Like, so yeah, it's like crazy. And it's not as fast as I would have ran it then. I wasn't doing sessions and stuff, but still, that's a huge jump from 60-mile a week and two track sessions a week and a tempo session to running to and from work 20 miles a day, and not even being that phased by it, really. And thinking, when I was a professional athlete, I couldn't have thought of anything worse than trying to do 100 miles in a week. And now I couldn't think of anything better than going and getting lost. Like I was saying to you before, like I've just got into cycling, and that is like really turning into a massive passion for me. Like just going for like 30-40 mile bike rides and it being a horrific pain the entire time. Like it's not a comfortable thing, cycling. Like you don't really go for a leisurely ride. Well, people do, but like, because I've got like a competitive sort of edge kind of like issue, I want to push it. I want to see how fast I can make the bike go. So like, for example, when I first started riding to and from work, I was doing like 13 kilometers an hour. And then now I can do average 18 to 19 kilometers an hour. So like, I'm like, oh, that's all right. But now then I start watching YouTube videos of kids that cycle, and obviously they're like 25 or something, like young absolute stallions, and they're averaging like 20 plus kilometers an hour. And I'm thinking, I want to get to that. Like, can I get to work in 30 minutes, 10 miles, 30 minutes? Can I do it quicker than that? So, but I would never have thought that when I was younger. I would never have gone into the mindset of being like, I'm a competitive person, but I would never have been like, right, if I do this much training now and I do these kind of things, and I add the gym in and I have all this time, what would I have done? But it's not good to look back, because it can be quite depressing when you start going on about like what you did, what you missed out on and what you didn't. But I just kind of wish I had the mentality I had now then. And that's what I like, and that's what people of my age will say to younger people.
Yeah.
And they will say exactly the same thing as me when I was younger, and they will just be know-it-alls and say, I don't really care. So it's quite a vicious
thing.
It's a vicious circle,
yeah. Now that's a great overview. Thank you for that. I think there's something that you missed out, like up till the current day, which is something to do with a bet. That was quite a significant moment for you. So you obviously finished your or had a period where it wasn't going so well, and you weren't at your peak, if you like. Would you mind me asking what happened, and then what got you back into running? And like I said, I think there was a bet involved.
No, not at all. I can't believe I actually forgot. I just started getting on. Basically, I didn't make the Olympics in 2012. I threw a massive tantrum because I was like 27, I think. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any form of like income. I'd been dropped from my sponsors. Lottery was gone. So I had nothing really. And instead of doing what I always did, which was when things weren't great, I would just get my head down, train, and then running was like my get out to be able to get back to a life of coffee and waking up and whenever you want and having a good time and have a little bit of money coming in, because there isn't a lot of money in running, but it's a great life. Like, it is a great life to be able to train and do your own thing and be your own boss basically all day. Basically, I threw a huge tantrum. I'd been thinking about it for a while. I wasn't in a great headspace, and I retired in 2012, walked away from sport, didn't tell anybody, just moved home. I had a job by the time the Olympics started by the time 2012. But when London had started, I was working full time. And I watched the Olympics, and then I didn't watch running for or anything to do with running for 4 years. I drank and ate like you do when you work in an office. I just was, like you say, normal. Didn't save any money, wasn't any better off, wasn't in any better place. I was just 100 kilograms fatter, and really like unhealthy and overweight, and just in a really bad place. But luckily in that time I met my partner Rebecca, and we've had like 2 beautiful children. So if it wasn't for all that, like, I wouldn't be in such a good place now. So it's not all bad. Like, that is like the one positive from all of it, is that I got to meet her and do them things. But like personally, like, I just was a mess. Like, physically, I couldn't get up the stairs and stuff. I was like out of breath playing with my son, and just like really, really unhealthy, because when your body's been like at like in a healthy state for so long, and you've always been slim and you've never had to worry about it. I got to the point where I was going to work and I was literally just buttoning up one button on my shirt and wearing jumpers, because I didn't want to buy clothes that were like extra large and stuff. So I was just putting jumpers over my shirts and wearing shirts underneath my things that weren't buttoned up. And I was just like pretty bad, to be honest. But then luckily I one day, I don't, like Time Hop comes up on your phone or something, and it randomly showed me a picture of me running in 2010, and I was like, Jesus, I can't believe I used to be like that slim, like I had no top on and stuff, and I didn't look ripped or anything. I just wasn't 10-ton Tessie, do you know what I mean? I wasn't like rolling down the street and stuff. So I showed Rebecca. She was like, oh my God, like that's like thingy. I asked her to take a picture of me, like literally the one in the kitchen of me, like being like pretty big, my eyes shut. And then I went for a run. I didn't think anything of it. I think I posted the picture before I went for a run, and I was something like, I'm going to get fit, just going to lose some weight and stuff. And yeah, I went for a run. And by the time I got back, I had about like 60 messages from my friends, all trying to get me into this like bet to like run like a fast time for 5k, run sub 60 minutes for 5k, or have all their names tattooed on me. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm just going to train and do it myself, which at the time wouldn't.
Can I just stop you there? They're asking you to get their names tattooed on you.
Yeah. So like the bet was like for me to. Yeah, so the bet was for me to lose all the weight, obviously, and then run. So, well, if I could run sub 16 without losing the weight, then that would have been great. But obviously, you can't do that. So I had to run sub 16 for 5K in under a year, or and they would give me £100 each. So 17 of them would give me £100 each if I did it. If I didn't do it, I would have to have all of their names tattooed on me in Times New Roman.
Wow.
So
quite specific.
It was a pretty good bet for them at the beginning, because my first run, it took me like 45 minutes to run 5K. So they were loving it. And they were like, they couldn't believe it. So I went running. It took them like 6 hours to convince me. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. And I was like, all right, then let's do this. So then from then, I just like trained every day except for one day. And it wasn't like hard training. It was just, the first bit was literally just get out for a run around the block, and then come home, then go to work all day, and then do the same the next day, and then build it up from there. Because what people seem to miss out when they put on a lot of weight, which I realized pretty quickly, is when you are like proper out of shape and like you haven't done any form of physical exercise for a long time, your muscles and everything are not fit to do any of that work. Like, they're not in a place where you can go, and some people get really lucky, don't get me wrong, genetically, like they can, but like for me, for example, I was a professional athlete, and then knowing that I used to go and do like 30-minute runs and run 5 miles in 30 minutes, like then knowing that I couldn't even run a mile in 15 minutes is a really difficult thing to process. But what it did teach me is that my body was no longer conditioned or in any shape to be able to put up with the stresses that come with like running or physical activity. So all the scar tissues and everything that I had when I was running had all moved. So they were all in different places, and I was getting like tweaking my calves and like getting pains and sores that I'd never experienced as a runner. I'd been very lucky, like touched wood, that I'd never been injured. I'd had one calf tear in my entire career, and that was because it was my own fault, because I never used to wear running tights, and it was a freezing cold night, and I had to do a really big session, and I always wore spikes on the track, no matter what. I didn't care about, I just loved wearing spikes. So that's how I got that calf tear. But then, like 3 years ago, I was fat, out of shape, and my muscles were no longer running muscles. They were just blobs hanging off me. So trying to teach my body like how to run, because biomechanically you will always run pretty similar to the way you have always run, because your brain tells you that's how you should run, and that's how your muscle fibers are formed. But I was just a shell of a Mr. Blobby running down the street. So it was just horrific for the first 3 months. It was really hard. Like, my back was gone every night pretty much, and I was only running like 15 minutes in the morning. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't super tough, like running wise. It's just my body just couldn't take it. 4 years of just abuse was like, this is just not happening. And to be honest, in the first few months, it was pretty, like, I really didn't think about the bet. Like, I blogged it on Instagram and stuff, but I wasn't really concentrating on it. I was just focusing on losing weight and getting down, because I thought if I lose the weight, I'll be able to do it. But then once I did lose the weight, I realized that I didn't actually have biomechanically, I was completely different. Even though if you were to look at me run, you probably think I looked pretty similar, but my knee, my foot would like turn in. My right foot has now, like, I land like supinate on the outside of my foot, but where my foot has tightened up so much from all the years of me doing it on the track, it is now fully like slanted to the point where it hits like directly on the outside of my foot, and then snaps across really violently, where it used to be really controlled. And obviously I had all the muscle tension there when I was professional, that it would counteract anything that was happening. But then obviously when I was unfit and it got to relax, it just became a lot worse. So I've had quite a lot of calf problems, quite a lot of like foot problems. I've never had in my entire life had Achilles tendonitis, plantar fascia, or anything until the last 3 years. and then I've had it like chronically.
Yeah, no, that's
and
tough.
and it's all to do with like being overweight, and you putting far too much pressure through your feet, and your feet were not wearing the right shoes. And then obviously, because I was doing quite well on Instagram and stuff, people were sending me stuff all the time, which was absolutely lovely. But what you shouldn't do, and what I've learned, is you should not be wearing different pair of shoes, like some other pair of shoes, every single run. You shouldn't be putting on a pair of New Balance for one run and then a pair of Nikes for another run. You need to stick with one brand, and if that's going to be your training block, you run through that whole training block with that, because the amount of different pairs of trainers I wore absolutely destroyed my legs. So some days I'd be fine, and then some days it'd just be horrific, and then I'd be out. Like I've been out for like, hence why I've been cycling. So for the last 3 weeks I've had tendonitis in my left Achilles from nowhere. Like it just came out of nowhere. Like it wasn't like I'd had no issues leading up to it. I'd had no pains, no nothing. I had one twinge in my calf, like right up in the belly of it, and I was like, oh, it's nothing. Ran through it. 3 days later I had tendonitis and couldn't run for 3 weeks. And it was like not even bad tendonitis, it was like severe, like burning for the entire 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden it's gone away again.
Strange.
So crazy.
To do with the setup on your bike, maybe your cleat position, or how high the saddle is, or how forward it is, and all that kind of thing. We can talk about that.
I need to go get a bike fit. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos. It's quite a far more technical than I ever imagined. I just thought you jump on and go for a ride, but I've had a few numb bums, a few dead feet, just my feet just going absolutely completely numb. I had a really bad crash as well on my old bike. I just black ice on like a corner that I shouldn't have been on. Just went straight out, slid for about 15 meters. I laughed though, I thought it was hilarious, but my leg was like pure black, and my elbow was like pretty bad. It's all right now, but my leg was like, oh, it's horrific.
Yeah, you've got to be super careful.
I know. It was my old bike. I just got a new bike, and like I said, it was wrong. I had like an old like steel racing bike, and it's horrific. It weighs about 20 kilograms, and like you can't even get it. You can't change gear, so you're stuck in a big gear.
Right.
And then, like it's horrific, and it doesn't have brakes. Like it slows down, but it doesn't stop. So it's a dangerous. It's in the office now. Like
leave it there.
I'm going to take it to a bike shop and just give them it. I think they'll give me it back though. So.
So with the bet, you kind of got to a point where you were getting injured, and how did it progress through? Did you make it?
I got quite lucky after the first part. So once I'd lost all the weight and I'd got over the injuries and stuff, like the final like 3 or 4 months, I progressed pretty quickly. So at one point, I reckon I was in about sub 15 minute shape, but the problem was I couldn't run. I couldn't get. I was trying to do it at park runs, and like the problem. What happened is like where I was really competitive before, and then coming back to being unfit and then being competitive again, I was getting really anxious about going to like park runs or doing races. And then when I was doing them, I felt like I was running too hard and everything was too fast and everything was just overwhelming. It was really difficult. Like I didn't really talk about it much, but it was a really difficult, like emotional process to not be good, basically, in my eyes, which I know a lot of other people will say, well, you are, and you ran really well, but in your own expectations and your own like mindset of where you've been running, for me, which this might sound terrible, but running like 18 minutes for 5k was really difficult to emotionally process when I could run 14 minutes for 5k in a tempo for a session, like 5 years earlier. I could go on the track and do 20 by a K in 3 minutes off 2 minutes recovery, like them kind of things. Like I couldn't do that anymore. So trying to put that into a process of like, right, I'm really struggling to run 5:30s here, like really struggling. But was I really struggling, or was it just I was having a panic attack like while I was running? So I was hyperventilating, I was over breathing, my legs were then feeling heavy, then I was then having struggles. Like one time I ran and Rebecca and the boys came down, and I got spasms in both my calves out of nowhere, and they locked up completely, and I finished, but I couldn't walk for the rest of the day. Wow. But it was just for that one day, so I have no idea what it was. I've never experienced it before. I thought I pulled both my calves, but I was halfway away from the finish, and it's an out and back, so I had to get back. So I just jogged it in agony, finished, couldn't get my shoes off to get in the car. got home, got in the bath. Rebecca went to our mum and dad's, which was literally just down the road from us for the rest of the day. And luckily, by the time she came back with the boys, I could move again. I have no idea what that was about or what happened. But I was just, it wasn't until, like, luckily I did it. I broke 16 minutes in the end, and I did that in August, and I did it in I did it in Burnley at the Podium 5K. And that was because I was in a race that was ridiculously fast. I think it was one in like sub 14 minutes. And I just sat in the race. It was on a cycle track, like a K loop. I just sat in the race, switched off, and ran it. And I purposely didn't go off hard, so I probably could have ran faster that day, closer to 15 minutes, but I sat off a little bit. I was still not, if I look back to when I broke 16 minutes, I'd done bits, right? And I'd ran a lot and I'd done stuff, but I didn't do any of the things that I should have done. So I didn't do any core stability stuff. I didn't do anything to specifically lose like belly fat, weight, or anything like that. I'd done sessions, but they were okay, but it weren't enough. I basically broke 60 minutes off just running to and from work and doing a session every now and again. Like there was some structure to it, but not really. Like it wasn't like I was, every Tuesday I'm going the track, every Thursday I'm doing a tempo. It was just as and when I could fit it in around work. So then obviously I'd done that, and then it was all fine. I thought it was fine. I was running quite consistently from that point. I didn't have any motivation to do anything else, which was a bit weird. I was thinking way ahead of myself, like I'll get really fit, I'll run. People wanted me to run a marathon, so I was like, I'll try and train for a marathon, and that just destroyed me. Right. I was nowhere near mentally prepared after just coming back from running to then running doing all the sub 16 challenge to then going from a 5K all the way up to a marathon, and that's going from like 50 miles a week I was averaging when I broke 16 minutes to it would have to be 80 to 100 miles if the way I would do it, the way I would train, it would have to be that. And I just couldn't, I got like twinges, I got like plantar fasciitis like 6 times in the space of a year from running sub 16 to like middle of last year. My body was just rejecting everything. I felt tired all the time. I couldn't walk up and down stairs properly. My legs would lock up after I ran. Like I was just like, I wasn't taking care of myself. I just thought that I was back being a 20-year-old kid that could just go run it and everything would be fine. And what I'd done is I hadn't processed the fact that I'm older and I might need to do other stuff like cycling, like cross training, like just anything other than running, because there's something, if I just concentrate on running right now, my body's going to break. And then it did, and I got really unfit again. I got on a lot of weight again. And then by Christmas this year, I wasn't anywhere near as big as I was when I started the sub 16 bet, but I was still I still got up to about 85 kilograms. I still got big again, and I was quite out of shape. And then I just jumped into it in January this year. I just started running 60-mile weeks. I had a treadmill, so I just started using that, because a treadmill is a great way to trick your body into running fast and to get fit really quickly, because there's no pressure really on your joints because the treadmill's doing everything. And that's what I try and tell people, like if you have a treadmill and stuff, it's probably the same with like turbo trainers and stuff. Like they do quite a lot of the work for you. So what it does is it releases a lot of the tension that you would build up. But what it does teach your body is really bad habits. That's why you need to run outside. Because if you do too much on the treadmill, your body becomes lazy in places where you need it to be strong. So doing a full training thing, and if you're wearing carbon fiber shoes on a treadmill, I don't even know what you're doing. I just cannot process why you would ever need to wear a pair of Nike 4% on a treadmill, or any form of like spring-loaded plated shoe. You do not need it on a treadmill, because the treadmill is doing it all for you anyway. So why then do you want to just do nothing, and basically your muscles aren't doing anything, you're just sweating. So anyway, that's my rant about that. But yeah, so like you need to mix it up. So like what I found is when I've started integrating treadmill running, so this is my first part of like at 35 coming to some sort of like mental enlightenment, being able to get up to 80 to 100 mile a week had to involve the treadmill or some other form of cross training. The boys are just ripping out some toys, so I apologize. And if you don't do that, you can't, at my age, my body will just break down. If I went around 100-mile week outside, double running, 8-mile days, 8 in the morning, 8 in the evening to get to 100 miles, my body would just it'd break. I wouldn't be able to move. But using the treadmill has meant I can do a lot more running at a slower pace with no impact. I did snap my treadmill, so like the frame is now broken, so it bounces pretty well. But yeah, it's like it adds a new level. And then in the last, like, because I got tendonitis from running all the miles, because I went like January, I went like 60, 80, 60, 80, 80, 60, 80, 80, 60, 100. But people think I just went around 100-mile week, but I spent the first 2 months, like every week running either 60 or 280-mile weeks, 60, then 280-mile weeks. So I built up to it. Then I got tendonitis, and then I've been cycling ever since. And then since I've been cycling, I am now 10 times stronger as a runner. Like, mainly because you get into this like state of like lactic. It's a weird, I can't even explain it. Like Scullion was at cycling yesterday, and like we were talking, and he said like the same thing. Like like when you do a track session, you're fine for the beginning part of it mostly. Then towards the end, it like gets to a point where it hurts and you really need it to stop. So like you're burning, your legs are going, you don't really have the strength to put your foot down properly. And that's why you slow down, because the power that you're trying to put through your foot to go forward doesn't work anymore. And that the lactic acid builds up, and then your body just eventually seizes up. With cycling, that seems to happen, but then there's a point where it doesn't get any worse, but it doesn't get any better. So it just, this is in my opinion, it stays like, and it's really uncomfortable. But if you just keep pedaling, you can ease it off a little bit and it'll like go away, or you can change position and it'll go away, but it's still uncomfortable for like long periods of time. And I think what that does in correlation to running is it teaches your body that you can run at a higher tempo, because you can cycle at this, you're cycling, your leg turnover at cadence is this, when you're cycling, I think this is how it's working anyway, is at this. So your lactic tolerance is going up and up and up and up. So like now I've been doing like hour runs at like 10 miles an hour, 11 miles an hour on the treadmill. So that's like 10 miling or something, or maybe faster. But it doesn't feel hard. I'm just sweating. Like my legs aren't buckling. Like I'm not tired. I've not got lactic buildup. Like I'm like, but then before, like if I'd have done that before I got tendonitis, I'd have been buckling. My legs would have, before I started cycling and stuff, I'd have been like, oh my God, I'm like done. I'm running at like 6 miles an hour or whatever that's, like 8 kph or something. Like, because I've got my treadmill set in miles an hour, because kph just fries my brain on how it works. I know if I run 9 miles an hour, I can do 9 miles in an hour. So like it works out properly in my brain. So it's just all becoming a lot easier. Now I'm starting to like, I don't know, like it's been a big change from where I was. Like I had a real bad breakdown last year, which didn't help like mentally and stuff. I think I've had depression for like a long time. I think like since like 2012, I've been in and out of bouts of depression, like around why I retired and all the doubts about like running and stuff. And I never really processed it all properly. And then last year it all came to a head. And if it wasn't for Rebecca, like I probably still would have been in this situation now. Like she sorted out me going to the doctor and did all these things that like I wasn't prepared to do myself. I wasn't prepared to look at myself and think that like I've got this problem that needs sorting, because I was always of the ilk of like, it's just a mental state that you get over. Like it's just a frame of mind that you need to change. It's just yourself. Like you're just being, and I'm not afraid to say it. Like I know some people might be offended, but like you're just weak. You're just being it's nothing, you just need to get over it. But it's not that at all. And now I have a true, like, not an understanding, because I don't think you will ever fully understand what depression is and how it really occurs. I just realized that I wasn't sleeping anymore. I was angry all the time. Like I couldn't really process emotions properly. I still struggle with that now, but like it was really bad at that point. So like I went to see the doctor and I got like signed off from work and all this stuff. And then what I found is that the more I ran, the more I just enjoyed it, and the more I just stopped looking at my Garmin and stopped like worrying about Strava and stuff, the better I started feeling, and the better person I was, whether that was running or whatever. It was the not putting any pressure on it that seemed to help it. And like, obviously not everybody's doing what they want to do for a job. Like I'm not doing what I want to do for the rest of my life and stuff like that. And all that plays like a big part in like mentality and your mental state. I just was in a place where I couldn't really think, and you don't realize that you're not thinking until you like take a step back and they give you some pills to take, and you just sort of like, I don't know, you start processing stuff, and it takes a while, and there's no answer. Like, there's not me saying if you do this you won't get it, and if you do this you'll get over it. Like, my process was just, I couldn't really think, and everything was a bit cloudy, and every time I was emotional, like getting upset watching The Incredibles or something stupid, I thought I couldn't understand why I was like feeling that emotion over something that I would never normally worry about. But it's hard to process that. Like, it's hard to figure that out, that you're in that state, and to admit that as well is a really difficult thing to like take on board, because you're kind of admitting that there is, and it's not a problem with you, but you're kind of in that, the way people think is that there's an issue, that you've obviously got some sort of problem, but it's how you address it. And like with all the stuff with mental health going around and all them different like scenarios, like you sort of just think, is it a bandwagon? Is it people just saying stuff because they're just lazy and they don't want to do stuff? But like from my experience, it's just like and not being able to think clearly and process anything properly. So like scenarios and stuff, like I became really addicted to like trying to run faster and trying to do things better and trying to like become a professional athlete. And I'm very obsessive about things. Like I really am. Like I'm really into cycling right now, but that could probably change like next week or like in a month. I doubt it will, because I am really passionate. I am really enjoying doing it. But that's what I need. That's what I was trying to figure out and worry about. Like, I'm like, because I used to get really addicted to playing the computer, and like, was that just because it's a get out, because it means I don't have to deal with anything in the real world, and I don't have to act, I can just, and I'd get really annoyed at like dying on a computer game, and like, it's actually nothing, it's meaningless. Like, what am I angry about? Like, am I angry at myself? Am I angry about something that I said to someone today? And I used to like really badly like hang on to like things that I would say. So I'd say something to someone, and that would be the fixation of my thought process for like ages. So if I'd said, and it might be nothing but a flippant remark to you or something, but I could say something that I think that you might have taken the wrong way, and I wouldn't be able to let it go. I wouldn't be able to process it properly. So I'd be thinking about that and worrying about that one thing, when actually, like, the dog's dead or something. No, he's not, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, something else important happened, and I'm not processing any of that information. I'm still worried about whether I've said something to offend someone, or I've done something that's, do you know what I mean? And it's just that kind of thought process that sends you a bit, I was going to say crazy, but that's not the right word, but it just sends your brain into like it just overloads your senses, and you can't process stuff properly. So
yeah, I think, you know, because I suffer with anxiety, and I've suffered with OCD in the past. Mm-hmm. And so I understand that process, and using terms like, oh, it's a bit mental, or it's a bit crazy, I think is almost like one of those, you know, non-PC things that people who suffer with mental health.
It's hard because you want to say that, like you want to say like, like it is, but you pause, because the way I speak, like just in general, I would use that as the vocabulary that I would use to just explain it. But then you sort of start thinking, is that offensive? Someone's going to get annoyed about that. Like, but it's not meant in that way. It's just, I think I was like a bit like losing it a bit.
Yeah, well, it's the heart behind it, isn't it? And we know that, you know, your intentions are right, and you wouldn't be talking about this if, you know, if that was the case. So, no, yeah, that's a really interesting journey, and thanks so much for sharing that. That's it's really quite tough what you've been through. And you say obviously medication was part of the sort of the support mechanism that helped it, and your wife as well. Are there any sort of in current times, say with obviously the coronavirus going on, where we're potentially people who suffer with mental health are a little bit more at risk? Are there any sort of tips that you've got that you could give people to help them get through their day, particularly in relation to sport and exercise?
Yeah, like just like, if you can't get out and you are stuck in the house, just go in the garden. If you don't have a garden, do something that's just going to raise your heart rate, and just like have fun, or find something like that you can get interested in. And it sounds crazy, but like for me, like I've been stuck in the house and around here for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks now. And I've just got into like, I've got a treadmill, so I'm really lucky. Like, and I know not everybody has that, but like, just like getting into like a new sport, like I said to you, like, I know I'm going on about it, but like cycling, like I'm watching quite a lot of videos on it. I'm learning about it all the time. I don't really know anything about it. I just thought you get on a bike and you go cycling. I didn't realize that you actually have to like think about your reach and where your seats is and all these different things. So it's like interesting to find out something else. And like, if you only dedicate yourself to one sport, I've come to realize that you can become like really self-isolated by yourself. So like you should always try and figure out, or not always, but like try and look to see if there is other things that you're interested in. Because I was always of the vein that like I'm only interested in athletics and football. So everything else I don't care about. Like it's just so like I'm just not interested in anything else. But actually, when it comes down to it, I am actually really interested in like loads of other things. I just dismissed it because I was just like thinking, now's the time more than ever that you've got time to just be able to do it. Sorry, my son was trying to get in the door. Is now's the time to try and like do that. And if you can just like, people are running marathons in their back garden and stuff, like,
yeah,
why not? Like, it's just like shuttle run, do stuff that's fun. Don't worry about what other people say. There's a lot of idiots out there that think that everything's stupid, but
yeah,
like, what are they doing with their lives? Do you know what I mean? Like, they're just idiots as well. So I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think that's all my questions for this time. Just out of interest, just to finish off, have you got any particular goals for yourself coming forward? Are there any more crazy bets that you're going to be doing where you're going to get someone's like Andy Vernon's name tattooed on your forehead?
No, so I am thinking, so if I can keep staying as fit and getting as healthy as I am now, I'll try and run like a marathon or half marathon this year. But I'm also going to try and cycle from here to Edinburgh just because I want to see if I can do that. It's like 60, 70 miles. And yeah, just do some stuff like that. I want to see do like a test really to see, because if I ever take up coaching and stuff in the future, I think that we've done stuff in such a way, like running, or just cycling, or whatever it is, like swimming, like we all just do like, well, you're different, you do all three, but like we get so specific in just one area when you get one sport, that I think there's a lot of different things that open up if you do other things. And I understand runners don't want to be adding muscle mass in and cycling all the time, but what do they do when they're injured?
Yeah,
they cycle or cross train constantly, and they seem to get so fit, but then as soon as they start running again, they stop all that extra bit and just do the running. Yeah, and just, or just same with like do you know what I mean, like with the swimming or whatever it is, like you always do something opposite when you're injured. Some people do nothing like me, but it's got to have some sort of benefit. So I'm just going to try and figure that out for myself, whether I do it and help my kids or help other people realize that you can get like super fit, because right now I'm probably as fit as I've ever been, and I've been cycling and running. So it's saying something. I can't swim, so I won't be doing no triathlons.
Yeah, give it time.
Honestly, I can't swim. I genuinely just think I just cannot swim. I cannot get it right. I have no idea how it works. It's like that's something that stresses me out. Like I get scared.
Yeah, it's pretty normal. When I first went into open water, I had panic attacks and I had to do breaststroke and keep my head above the water. A bit like, I know this isn't a very PC thing to say, but like the granny sort of swimming method, if you like. It was tough to get through, but it's definitely a challenge that you could take on. And if you fancy it, then you can come up to
I love the other two things. It's just swimming just melts my brain. I take my kids swimming, but I just bob up and down. I'm not swimming about.
Get the floats out, eh?
Yeah, I just can't get it right. I have no idea. I'm not coordinated enough.
Okay. This video's got a little bit of a delay on it, so I hope that's okay. Yeah, we can all enjoy that a little bit. But in terms of if people want to follow your journey and what you're doing next, where can they go to
just like, well, I need to pick up my Instagram a bit, because since I've been off, I've just been doing my YouTube videos every day. So I do like a daily vlog on my YouTube, but I just forget, because I'm like, I can only do like a certain amount of things, but like some people can do like all of it, and I actually have no idea how they do like every single bit of social media. So like I'll try and do it all pretty well, like Twitter, Instagram and stuff like that. a one-man band who's terrible at doing multiple things.
I think you're doing a pretty good job, and you're being quite hard on yourself. But so what's the hashtag or the @
Oh, it's just my name. It's just Colin McCourt on everything. So like Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, it's just my name. So, and if it doesn't come up, I obviously haven't done a good enough job.
Yeah, I think you're doing a fine job. I've enjoyed following your journey, and thanks for joining us today, Colin.
No worries, man. Anytime.
I appreciate that.